All right, it's time to get started in Illustrator with your first assignment. This is going to be a chance for you to pick up a few skills, but also to do some exploring, just so you can kind of learn a little bit on your own about what Illustrator has to offer before we get into some more specific assignments. So the first thing that you're going to do once you have Illustrator open is you're going to open up a new document. So I'll say File, New, or just Control N if I want to, because that is the shortcut. And it's going to open up this screen here where I get to pick the settings for the document that I want to open. Now I'm looking at step 2 now in your instructions, and I suggest following along with that because there's some really nice screenshots that show you what the document should be set up like. I'm going to leave this name here. I'm just going to leave that as untitled for right now, and we're going to change that a little bit later. I want it to be letter size. That's perfect. I want my units to be in inches. A lot of times when you'll open this up, the default will be to points. So go ahead and change that to inches for the purposes of this assignment. And the orientation, I want it to be a landscape orientation. So this guy right here, who's is a portrait orientation. Portrait is more of like a vertical, like more vertical than horizontal, versus landscape, which is a more horizontal orientation. We're going to choose that and say OK. All right, we have our document open. Because your nameplates are going to be folded in half, we only want to design on the bottom half of it so that way when you fold it, you can see your design. So what we need to do first is just divide this page in half so that we're only doing the designing on the right side of it. So first, in order to do that, we're going to make a little non-printing division line, what we call a guide in Illustrator. So we're going to turn on our rulers. The shortcut for that is Control R. And you can see it's brought up this ruler bar here and here. And I can use that now to divide this document evenly in half. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so I can actually see those guides a little bit better. For me to zoom, I like, there's a bunch of different ways to zoom that we'll talk about, but my preference is always to hold down the Alt key and then to just use the scroll wheel to scroll in with the mouse. So here we go. This side of the document is 8.5 inches, and I want to divide that in half. So do the math on that. Divide 8.5 and by 2, and you end up with 4.25. So this right here is where I want that line to go. So in order to draw that non-printing guideline down, I am going to click in this little ruler bar right here. And notice I have to click up in the bar, okay? I don't click down in here, okay? I click actually up in this bar when I'm going to pull that guide down. So I'm going to come up here, click, and I'm going to pull this down to 4.25. And now I have this blue line that's suddenly there on my page. And that allows me to see, an even division of that page. This little blue line, it won't actually print. It's a non-printing guide. So we're going to leave this top half blank, and this bottom half, this is where we're going to do our design work. Now, it's time to save, because you always want to make sure you're saving as you go. So in order to save, you can either go File and down to the Save option, or use the shortcut, much better, Control S, let's save, and you're going to find your class folder. And within that folder, we're going to make some other sort of nested folders. So in order to do that, I just right-clicked. I'm going to say New Folder, and I'm going to name this 01 underscore nameplate. And that's the name of this assignment. And now we're going to go inside that folder, and we're going to name this particular assignment with our first initial, our last name, and nameplate. It's really important that you get into a good habit of saving your files in a logical way, and in particular in this class, make sure you're always saving things to the T drive, because otherwise, if it gets lost, I can't help you recover it. Don't save stuff to your desktop. Can't emphasize that enough. Okay, we're going to hit save. It's going to pop up this little list of options here. Just hit OK. Don't worry about that. Okay, now we're ready to start looking at our design. We're going to flip over in your instructions. We're on step 5 now, and we're going to start by putting our name on it. So this is where we're going to use this type tool. The type tool if you look over here in our toolbar, we have this T. You can think T for type. Remember it that way. I'm going to click on that type tool, and I'm just going to kind of draw out a big box here where I can type in my name. This is the one. All right, and I want to make that text bigger because to me that is just too small. So I'm going to highlight it, and I could come over here to make it bigger, but gosh, that's not as big as I want it to be. We'll learn some other ways to make text bigger, but for now, know that you can come over here and you can type in all sorts of numbers. Now that's obviously way too big, so let's take that down to about, maybe a little bit smaller. If you get to this point where you see like a little red box in the corner, you can't see all of your type or any of it, it means that the text size is too big for the box that you have. So sometimes you can fix that just by increasing the size of your box. Let's see if that does it. Oh, that's not going to do that here for us. I'm not going to be able to get it as big as I want it to be. Okay. All right, there we go. So I found a number that would work for me. All right, so I have the type there the way I need it. At this point, you guys can do all sorts of changes to it, okay? I can come in and change the color of it. I have to have the type selected to do this, but if I come over here, you know, and rest assured that there are lots of other colors in here. I could pick any of these colors from my swatches palette, and I can add color there. If I want to put a stroke around it, I can do that. There's a real light blue stroke. Let's thicken it up a little bit so you can see it. But you can see that I can start to add some other little details to it. I can come over here to this little color panel and I can kind of mix my own shade, maybe make that a little bit greener. There's lots of other details that you can do with this. So if there's something that you really want to try that you just need like help trying to figure out how to do, ask the teacher, okay? Ask me. I will be happy to help you kind of figure out how to do whatever you want to do. Because everyone comes into this with a different skill set, so we can add other details in as we need. The next thing that we want to do is I'm looking for you guys to have used the brushes somehow on your design. And so in order to use the brushes, I'm just going to go ahead and you can apply brushes to really anything. Let me show you a couple different options here. But I can actually use a brush. I can make it a squiggly line or a straight line, however I want to do it. And then if I select those, then come back up here to my selection tool after I've drawn them and select them, I can come over to my brushes. I can apply some interesting effects to them. Okay, if I want to look for other brush options, I can click on this little brush library icon down here, and it's going to tell me I have all sorts of other brush options. Maybe we try the novelty brushes, and we add little ants marching across our design. It's getting a little bit obnoxious here. There are tons and tons and tons of options as you go through this. So find something that you like and stick with that and make that the thing that you do. You know, maybe I like these airplanes and but I want them to be a little bit bigger. It just looks like a really confusing air show now. But you can play with different options and, you know, change the colors on things, and you have lots of options when you're playing with those brushes. So play with them, mix them together, look for something that works for you. You'll see lots of examples that I have in the slideshow and in the room. So I think that will give you some ideas of different things that you can do. But I'm going to move on because you don't probably want to watch me mess around with my design for too much longer. The next thing that I'm going to have you guys incorporate somehow into your design are some of the things that you can find, some of the cool things that you can find in the symbols palette. So I am going to open my symbols palette because it's not already one of my options that's open. And so actually it is over here. If you see this little icon, that's where the symbols palette is. Or if you can't find that, any of these palettes that you need, you can go under window and then symbols, and it'll open it right up. Within there, you have these cool designs that you can drag out and use in your design. There's a few default ones there, and again, we have this library option that I can click on, and I can open up other things. And it can be anything from, you know, this butterfly. I'm going to get out on the corner and maybe turn him. He's oddly out of proportion with the planes, but I can use that, or I can find they have some kind of cool patterns in here. And so I've always liked these kind of, they call them dot pattern vector packs, and they just have some interesting looks to them. I'm going to show you how I'm going to incorporate this in just a second here. Get rid of these couple things here. All right. I want to use this dot pattern vector pack because I like it, but I kind of want it, I want it to be a different color. I don't want it to be this black. And so I'm going to change the color of it. In order to change it, I've got to break the link to the symbol that's connected to. So with it selected, if I come up here and click on break link, you can see it's looks very different now. It's turned those into vectors that I can now edit. I'm going to change the color of that to kind of a darker blue here, and let me click off of it for a second so you can see. Now the only problem here is it's covering my name up, so I'm going to select those vectors again, and I'm not getting all of them, so I'm going to use my magic wand tool to select all of them at once. And I'm going to right click on them, and I'm going to arrange them, and I'm going to send them to back. So now I can see my name a little bit better. And I'd also like to have maybe just kind of a solid color background here. So I'm going to draw a box across this. Okay, and I don't want it to be exactly that same blue color. I kind of want it to stick out just a little bit from that dot pattern vector pack I used. And again, this is sitting on top of that vector pack, so I'm going to arrange this. I'm going to send it to back. And now I have the start to kind of an interesting design that I'm going to work with. Even when you feel like you're done, give yourself a chance to keep working in Illustrator and to keep learning and exploring. One of the things that you're going to want to really make sure is that the name that you do, the name type that you create for yourself is something that's going to stick out, that's going to be easy to read. And so I don't really think that there's enough differentiation in color here on the name, so I'm going to just change that to something a lot lighter so that when it prints, maybe even lighter than that, I can really see it. And just keep in mind that something might look really viewable on the screen, but when you go to print it, sometimes you can lose some of that definition. Anyway, when I'm done, I'll go ahead and go to print this. Everything outside of this border here and here, that stuff won't print. So I'm going to say File, Print. You're going to want to select our color printer, which I'm at home, so I can't see that right now. But the one step that you're going to want to make sure you do before you print is always look at this little preview screen right here. And you can see I'm going to have some things that are going to get cut off if I print it like this. And so the one thing I want to do is I want to say Fit to Page. And now you'll notice that I won't be having things cut off. And once you have that set and you've selected the right printer, you're ready to go. Just make sure you have put a piece of cardstock paper in the printer before you print, and don't print more than once if it doesn't come out immediately. Sometimes things just get queued up and you just need to be a little bit patient. All right, take your time, have fun, spend lots of time exploring, ask lots of questions so you can come up with something that really fits your interest, and have fun with this first assignment.